There you go. There you go. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Ashbrook School. If you're here for our Exploring Humanities, Foreign Language, and Physical and Health Education discussion panel, that's a mouthful, you're in the right place. Thanks for being with us for about the next hour or so. And please know that thanks to, is that Cecilia who reminded me? We are recording this. So this discussion will be made available in video format for anyone who asks for it. So if you're on the call on the Zoom and you know of someone who isn't and you think they might want this, just let us know. We can send it to them even if they're not here this evening. My name is Dr. Chris Schoberl, and it's my pleasure, as I say often, to have the world's best job as Ashbrook's head of school, and I'll be your MC for this evening's panel discussion. Where's my friend Rachel?
And I am Rachel Sechler. I'm the assistant head of school. This is my 11th year at Ashbrook, and I would argue with Doc that I have the best job at Ashbrook.
We'll do a thumb wrestle for that tomorrow.
We don't seem to agree on that one.
No, we don't agree on that. We'll spend about 10 minutes on some background information about Ashbrook, spend about the majority of our time in a discussion with our teacher experts, addressing a variety of frequently asked questions that many prospective parents have asked through the years. We'll then leave some time for Q&A. If you have questions as we go, you should feel free to use the response function to raise your hand. If you feel it's urgent, or put your question in the chat for the Q&A at the end. That'll take us to about 7:30. So first, a little bit of background about Ashbrook School. In 1993, Dave and Cecilia Gore defined what they felt was what their educational criteria was, what they were seeking for their two youngest children for an excellent school. The features they sought included a well-rounded full curriculum, flexible and vibrant arts program, advanced science and mathematics, history taught to show cause and effect, early introduction to foreign languages, small class sizes, a strong monthly themed character education program, and challenging and nurturing teachers. Dave and Cecilia, after compiling this awesome list, soon realized that such a program was not available locally, so they decided to create their own dream school in Corvallis. They acquired a 12.5-acre parcel adjoining Starker Arts Park, and their dream was born. I make it sound so simple, I'm sure it wasn't. Dave himself, for example, designed our purpose-built campus to support the academic program he and Cecilia envisioned. There is a peacefulness to the space. You can maybe get a sense of that through some of these images. A sacredness even, but also a strong sense of playfulness. Community and joy pervade every corner of our campus. The place really is a work of art, and those visiting will have zero doubt that aesthetics were important to the Gores as they endeavored to create a space that, just by the thoughtfulness of its design, signaled the high value they placed on education. In addition, Dave wanted every teacher to have a premier space for teaching. The building is bright and airy and brings the outside in, and is a great resource for our teachers as they work to challenge and nurture. These are values that are embedded in our school's mission statement. Around every corner, it's clear that the design principles were aimed at creating a space that's both comfortable and practical, and one that welcomes all visitors. Our classrooms are warm and inviting. They're beautifully designed to be appealing to the eye, but also functional for a group of students and their teacher. Students have plenty of space in the room, shelves upon shelves of books and supplies at their fingertips, and bulletin boards designed to engage and provide resources readily available for students to access. Combined with excellent teachers, a challenging and nurturing curriculum, a strong character education program, a wonderfully vibrant and exciting arts curriculum, and an array of electives second to none, the student experience is one of excitement and growth and inspiration. As a result, I tell people this, they don't believe it, but it's true. Our students often express regret that Friday has come so quickly. I'm telling you, it'll happen tomorrow. I'll be out at the curb saying hi to parents and wishing them a wonderful weekend. And the kids are genuinely bummed out. They're getting in the car and going home and not coming to school the next day. On top of all this, we have small class sizes. Beginning school, for example, caps at 16, lower school caps at 18, and middle school caps at 22. Therefore, students really are well known by their teachers and are given differentiated instruction on a daily basis. Of course, we're guided in all we do by our school mission, which I alluded to earlier. Students at Ashbrook are challenged and nurtured and invited to seek and embrace growth challenges. For example, students who are in their comfort zones as readers may be invited to push themselves a bit more as mathematicians or writers, or vice versa. Just a word about what we mean by academically capable. When we say we challenge and nurture academically capable students, what do we mean by academically capable? Our founders and our teachers define that as the behaviors that a student brings to the classroom that allow them and others to learn. It's not about aptitude. It's really more about attitude. It's not about IQ. It's more about a willingness to bring persistence, effort, and motivation to one's learning. I call them learning behaviors. If I could leave you with a single takeaway, it would be this. What has come to be known as the Ashbrook Way is very simple. We take the time to get to know our students, one human being at a time, one day at a time, and to be thoughtful about how we go about meeting their very unique needs. While this is not always the most efficient way to educate, we're not driven by efficiency, but by effectiveness. And it's certainly not always the best economic model, though we're driven more by value than by cost. And we believe that this is the ideal educational model. Please reach out to me or anyone else you meet during tonight's discussion, and we'd be happy to make time to tell you more about our awesome school. I would really enjoy an opportunity to help you fall in love with Ashbrook the way I have. And with that, I will stop talking and allow our panelists to respond to a few questions. Panelists, you ready? If you could, panelists, before you answer your question, as a way to start, introduce yourself, give us your name and how long you've been at Ashbrook and what you do at Ashbrook. Now, this first question is a little bit of a softball to get us started, and again, it's for each of you. We're going to start with my friend Amanda, and she was the first one on the call, and she's at the top of my little column here. Why do you teach at Ashbrook?
Hello, my name is Amanda Kelly, and I'm the 5th grade teacher. I have been at Ashbrook for 2 years, and I teach at Ashbrook because I felt the community when I walked in for my interview. The teachers all just had really positive attitudes, and I was like, I want to work somewhere like that, where the teachers enjoy coming to work, they get along with one another. And then it was just super clear that, you know, if I needed somebody to support me, somebody would be there to support me. I also really liked the aspect of the smaller class sizes and being able to individualize for all of my students' needs. Thank you.
Come on now, don't be shy. Who's next?
I'll go next. My name is Kayla Jarrah Weber, and I teach PE and health. I've been at Ashbrook for 3 years, and I started teaching here because all of their values just struck really home with how I like to teach. I like to instill and inspire, and all those words were on their website when I was looking up what Ashbrook was and where it was and what it was all about. Then kind of like Amanda, when I walked in the door, it was just an immediate feeling of community and kind of a sense of belonging. So they hooked me in early, and I love it here. Wouldn't want to teach anyone else.
I'm glad we did. Lou, you're muted. There you go.
Hi, my name is Lu Zhangchen. I'm teaching since 1998, but I have 6 years to learn Chinese, to learn English, to learn computer, and have my own studio. So total in Ashbrook, I'm teaching 18 years. I love teaching here, and all the environment and the students, wonderful. I enjoy it.
And we enjoy having you with us, Lou.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claire Berrand. I teach French and Spanish, and I've been teaching here since 2014, so this is my 8th year. I actually have taught all levels from kindergarten up through college, and I enjoy Ashbrook of all the places I've worked. I get to teach K through 8, still a variety, but it's wonderful to have that variety and to start kids so young, and working with such wonderful students is really what keeps me here at Ashbrook. So thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
My name is Edgar Washburn, and I've been teaching English at Ashbrook for 6 months. My lovely bride came to work at Ashbrook 4.5 years ago, and I was going to write a book. And I came to Ashbrook plays and concerts, and I met Marcia's wonderful co-workers, and Cindy Roloffs, who was the head of school at the time, invited me to come in as a substitute teacher. And I did. And I suddenly decided that I was not retired from teaching after all. And for all of the reasons that I wanted to work at Ashbrook are the same reasons why I am working at Ashbrook.
That's great, Edgar. Thank you.
And hi, I'm Marcia Washburn. I've been teaching at Ashbrook for 5 years now. The first 3 years, I was the 5th grade teacher, and happy to relinquish that job to my excellent colleague, Amanda. She's amazing. I've been teaching history at the middle school level for 2 years now, and during this last year, I've also become the middle school team lead. I was so impressed by what I learned about Ashbrook during the interview process that I upped stakes from New Hampshire and brought my family all the way across the country to relocate here to Corvallis without having ever visited here. So it was an amazing experience all around.
Well, yes, a fellow New Englander. Thank you. It's nice to have you with us, and I'm sure we could come up with a secret handshake, Marcia and Edgar, for our New England roots. Did we get it? I think we got everybody correct. Yes. In prepping for this panel, I had lots of discussions with each of our panelists, and it was during a conversation that I had with Marcia that I heard a perspective on studying humanities that I'd never heard before, which I thought was really valuable to remember and write down and maybe claim as my own someday. I just thought it was brilliant, and so I'll share that with you. Marcia, this question is really kind of a hypothetical. I want my child to be an engineer or a surgeon. Why should they have to study the humanities? And I think this will get a little bit at the way you defined the humanities, and really something that really impressed me about that definition.
Thanks, Chris. I've always believed that studying the humanities helps us to become our best human selves. It's an ongoing process, so there aren't a lot of really great photo ops along the way to show that we're developing and we're growing, but it's also a path that's filled with setbacks too, as we fall short of the goals that we set for ourselves. And I think that the most important part of studying the humanities really teaches us the great things like empathy and tolerance and compassion. I really think that those things are at the core of studying the humanities. I also think that the sciences are amazing, noble pursuits, but I also believe at my heart's core that we want our engineers designing for people, not for pixels. And we want our surgeons treating people, not conditions or ailments. And understanding and appreciating what makes us most human through the study of history, literature, foreign language, and culture really broadens our ability to connect authentically with everyone in our community and with those people in the farther, broader world.
That's great. And there it is right in front of me, the word human in the word humanities. I hadn't really ever thought about it like that, but it really resonated with me. Thanks so much, Marcia. Kayla, this one's for you. How does what you teach in health education allow a person, in Marcia's words, to be the best human they can be?
Well, as a quick background, I I work with K through 8, so I get them every day, kindergarten through 4th grade. So at the lower school level, we really work on beyond growing ourselves physically and being more competent in those skills, learning how to recognize our own comfort zones and challenge those levels where we feel like we can, and then understanding that others have different comfort zones than we do, and how can we help them be the best that they can be, and starting that young so that when we get to 4th, 5th, 6th grade, we can start talking about, I'm recognizing my own feelings, my own comfort zones, how can I communicate those, and acknowledging that the different skills and opinions that we have are going to help build a better team, because you don't want everybody who has the same skills on your team. So we throw in a lot of problem solving and a lot of teamwork, and a lot of leadership in the different situations and games and activities that we play, so that they can start building those really, really early, so that by the time we're in middle school, we've established kind of our own team here at Ashbrook, and we start diving into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we start diving into world games so that they can, again, broaden their perspective, and try to put themselves in other people's shoes. So it's building block day to day in the PE department.
And I think it's great. I mean, being able to spend that amount of time working on relationship skills, healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships, knowing the difference, friendship, communication, self-advocacy, all of that. You know, you speak about being an effective team, helping students understand and appreciate the perspective of others. I think as we think about ourselves as adults, how important are all of those skills in my daily life? I wish I had had a teacher like you who helped me to understand those at an earlier age. Might have been a less bumpy road in my younger years. So thank you for that. Edgar, in this same vein of enhancing our humanity, why is it important for students to learn how to write or to read and understand challenging texts, and how do you help them if they struggle?
Well, I mean, writing is all about communication, being understood, understanding others. So, when it comes to academic writing, the idea of being able to sit down and organize your thoughts and be sure that you can support everything with evidence is not just a humanities thing. That crosses all the disciplines. The thesis statement and the hypothesis have a bit in common, and creative writing, which I love. Boy, kids just make all kinds of connections between things in their own lives and things that they're reading, and that just lights up all different parts of the brain. So I think that writing is just foundational. And on the opposite side of the coin, reading and understanding texts, that's really digging in and trying to understand what another person is trying to express, which again is kind of foundational to education. Trying to understand things is something that we do in all of the disciplines. But again, in literature, especially, we're trying to understand people from different times and different places, from different social and cultural backgrounds. And that brings in the empathy and compassion, that kind of connection between all of us, like the human condition. How to mitigate struggles with if I can help it, I try to select texts that are going to be accessible to students. That can be challenging for a whole bunch of different reasons. But, you know, after I've chosen a text, I really try to decide what it is that I think is essential, those elements that I want to focus upon. And that's where the activities, the reader responses, things like that come in. So that's when we get to slow down. We get to kind of hyper focus on particular words and phrases and interactions between characters. So the students and I'd like to bring in a lot of collaboration with this as well. So the students get to combine their powers, you know, Wonder Twins activate like that, and that they can help each other. I also try to, if at all possible, to read shorter selections aloud in class, partly because I'm just really dramatic and I like to, I like to do funny voices and things like that. And I've also encouraged some students and their parents to make use of audiobooks if they're having a difficult time. And that's a lot of time outside of class, but some of them have taken me up on it as well.
That's awesome. How many times, I know you've probably heard this many times, but countless times I've heard students say to me, Doc, I really didn't know that was my perspective until I wrote about this, or I didn't realize that I believed that, or that was my opinion until I wrote about it. So it's you know, your thoughts about empathy and really being able to connect with others through works of fiction and understanding, putting self in the shoes of others is super important. But I also like the idea of them sort of discovering their own thoughts about their own perspectives and opinions about things that they would not have necessarily encountered unless they slowed down enough to really come up with the evidence, as you talked about earlier, and really examine it, interrogate it by taking the time to write about it. So what do you, just out of curiosity, Edgar, what are you reading right now, and who are your favorite authors to teach?
Well, the sixth graders have just finished reading The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and they're working on their 5-paragraph essay. The seventh graders finished The Hobbit, and they produced an annotated map, and I'm in the process of reading that. The eighth graders had a literature circle. That was 4 books: Oliver Twist, The Hound of the Baskervilles, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and Skink No Surrender by Carl Hysen. And they've actually moved on to a nonfiction unit as well. And actually the Hobbit students have moved on to a nonfiction unit. They just got to pretend to be sled dogs today on the stage reenacting Glow in the Dark by Gary Paulson. So that was great fun.
I heard about that. They were super excited about that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. My favorite authors, Tolkien, Ray Bradbury. I like O. Henry and Saki for the short stuff.
I know you're a Tolkien fan, that's for sure. It's a complicated world, Tolkien's world.
Yeah.
Amanda, shifting gears a little bit, as a 5th grade teacher at Ashbrook, you are in a very unique position because you are in the middle school. You are a middle school teacher. You're on the middle school team, but you're also teaching in a self-contained classroom, right? So it's this transitional moment. Can you talk a little bit about how your work as the only middle school teacher with a self-contained classroom, how does your work help our students, particularly with respect to the humanities, transition between the lower school and the middle grades program?
Yeah, thank you. I am in a very unique position, you know, being in 5th grade, part of the middle school team. My kids, the specials are changing to now where they're seeing Kayla every other day, and they have band every other day, but for longer periods of time. But I'm also a part still of the lower school team where I have the opportunity that I teach English, history, science, and math every single day to the 5th graders. And so I think that being kind of in the middle, having the opportunity to go to, both teams, it helps me kind of get an idea of where they're coming from. And then going to those middle school teachers and saying, okay, where do we need them to get to? In regards to academics, for example, Marcia and I just had a conversation the other day of, hey, this is where I'm at in history. Where should we try to get to? How should we get there? Being willing to ask them for advice as well. And then a lot of it is just looking at what they have, the skills that the fifth graders come in having from lower school, and how can I help them grow to be successful sixth graders. And it's so much more than just, academics. It's the responsibility of, at the beginning of the year, I'm really walking them through everything. But about now, it's like, okay, it's time to step up to the plate and become those middle schoolers and rise up to the expectations. So, just the teamwork, like I mentioned at the beginning, and that community is super helpful. And being able to provide that for my students, I think is helpful for them as well.
It's one of the things I fell in love with. It's one of the things I tried to do at several other schools, create a fifth grade that's exactly in the model that we have it here. And when I saw that we had it, I thought, oh man, this is a school for me.
Yeah,
it's great,
awesome.
it is pretty awesome. Shifting gears a little bit from studying history and literature and English to studying a world language. Claire, why is it important for students to study languages?
Okay. So what's wonderful about Ashbrook is actually we start in kindergarten, and that they say this, the younger you start, the better. The brains are, ready to learn a language. Even sooner is better, but it's awesome that I think there's only 15% of the elementary schools in the United States that offer foreign language. So we're one of them, yay. And another great point is that they say that, start young and stay long. So our students take all the way to 8th grade. So that allows them to get familiar with the language, familiar with the cultures that, speak that language. And as they mature, they have a deeper understanding then of that, whether it be, the cultures or the grammatical structure and how it's different from English. And as some might think, it is not, prevent them from learning English. It actually helps them. There's a lot of, it boosts their brain in so many ways, with whether it's problem solving or critical thinking, listening skills, helping with math or reading or writing. I mean, this is all research that shows that learning a language is good for your brain, and it's helping them in every other area of school. So I guess they're more open to other cultures, that they're learning about. That makes them not afraid, and more open to the world. Also learning another language, it was going to help them, even if they don't continue with that language. Ultimately, if they want to learn a different language, their brain is already, ready to learn a language. I see this with students coming into kindergarten who already speak 2 languages, and they just pick up the one that I'm teaching them just like that. They have great memorization, focus, attention. And so it's great that what we offer here, K through 8. So
yeah, no, it's terrific. That's a great story about kids who come in bilingual already, how quickly they pick up one of the languages you're teaching. You exercise that. Yeah, that language center of the brain is so important to exercise that at a young age, no matter what language you end up taking and really falling in love with, or like you, not choosing, just doing both. Like, that's amazing.
Well, I'm passionate about it because I didn't have that opportunity. I mean, they often asked me if my parents spoke French or Spanish, and I said I had to work so hard to learn a language. Right. You guys are so blessed, just have this opportunity, Yeah.
So. Thank you. Lou, Mandarin seems like an especially challenging language to learn. For example, we can't speak about cognates between English and, say, like we can with French and Spanish, right? But just one example. And even if we're using the Roman character set with Pinyin, it's a challenge. I've seen your students do a ton of calligraphy and using the modern and ancient character set, which I think is just fabulous. What advice would you give to students and parents who are thinking about pursuing the study of Mandarin?
Yes, according to many research reports, learning Chinese language involves using both sides of brain due to its character patterns and more complicated phonic requirements. Therefore, it can be challenging for many non-Chinese speaking students. But hopefully, students will develop a different appreciation for language through this learning process. So for my suggestion is, first one, start earlier. This education is more natural, effective, and easier. Start from the early age. At a young age, the student tend not to be worried or embarrassed by incorrect pronunciation. This will allow them to have more practice and get more opportunity for improvement. And then second important is avoid using English in the Chinese language classroom and pretend they are in the China or Taiwan, speak all Chinese. Focus on practice, talking first and not to worry or embarrassed by the incorrect pronunciation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thought about no sense of, or less of a sense of embarrassment, I think is so super important. What do you do though for a student who is struggling to learn a language, any language, but maybe in particular Mandarin?
Yes, I have three things. One thing is to make learning diverse, learning fun. And then the second one is just-in-time learning, verification, and the feedback. The third one is convenient learning. The first one, to learn diversity and fun, is use audio, video, animated content in the teaching learning materials. So in class activities such as individual or group performance, Chinese dance, short subject dialogue, play between classmates, Chinese painting, drawing, physical exercise. And cultural celebration, Lantern Festival, Dragon Ball Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival, fully embedded in the teaching material. And we even, right now we have COVID, but the old time we are joined the community cultural event like Earth Day, Taiwanese Night, Oregon Asian celebration too. Mm-hmm. And the second one is just-in-time learning, verification and feedback. We use short and often learning feedback loop, such as use Google Form for quick learning, feedback, and tests. The Google Form is real-time questions and answer, and kids can do several times and to learn. And the classroom teaching material, student interactive performance video available for my Ashbrook Chinese blog.
Yes, go ahead.
So convenient learning is all the teaching material are available anytime. Could be hard copy or online access to students and parents can see all the material. They can learn even from the phone. They can learn Chinese, can hear Chinese. So the time progress, I organized and available online for students and parents to review.
I've been really impressed, Lou, with how during COVID you have used technology to, there have been times where, and I imagine for language teachers, maybe even, I think our music teacher Mr. Hoagie probably experiences the same thing. There are times when the mask just doesn't work. You can't wear the mask while you're, for example, in Mr. Hoagie's situation, trying to play clarinet. It seems like when you are learning a language that, and maybe it's in particular with Mandarin, it's helpful to be able to see the mouth and the shape of the mouth and be able to hear the student clearly. It's amazing to me how much you've used technology. For example, having students record themselves on video and send you performances that they've done, say for the Foreign Language Festival, or assessments that you've done to evaluate them, where it would not necessarily feel safe without the mask on, being that close to them in a classroom, all of them speaking like that. So I've always been really impressed with how resourceful you've been. So thank you for that. Kayla, back to you. I'm thinking in general, some people might look at our lineup of teachers this evening and see physical education as a bit of an outlier in this discussion, though at Ashbrook, we would not think that. Can you talk a bit about the role of physical education? You spoke earlier about health education, but maybe a little bit about physical education. Again, we go back to Marcia's good point. What role does it play in our ability to help our students reach their fullest academic potential?
So I see my job as being able to instill a passion for a healthy lifestyle through super creative units and games and cross-curricular content. Whenever I can throw that in, I do. We just got out of our Olympic unit, so we had to get a little creative because we don't have snow in the gym. But I showed the kids ice skating and biathlon and cross-country skiing, and we did bobsledding and skeleton. And I was getting emails from parents saying, we were watching the Olympics, and all of a sudden my student was telling me all these facts about, this luge person who was going. So I love that aspect of it, that they can pull that content out of my class. But I love even more talking with the teachers and being able to take what they're taking in the classroom and bringing it into my gym, or bringing it in to the physical education environment in general. Like, for instance, in 3rd grade, they talk about the Oregon Trail. So they build wagons, and then we put them on scooters and we do wagon races in the gym. And this year we got new fitness trackers from the PTO. So we're going to actually walk the Oregon Trail and see how long that takes us. So stuff like that I love to do. Anytime I can, throw the cross-curricular in there. I love it. And then on the middle school side of things, especially moving on into their futures, really stress the importance of their mental health, and giving them skills that they can take with them beyond the gym. So when they're no longer in my classroom and they're not getting the hour break every day in my elective to just be a kid and run around and get those endorphins in their body again, teaching them how to recognize when their stress levels are maybe going too high, and then skills that we can do to combat that, or be proactive and stop that. So taking a break from your 3 hours of studying to go take a walk around your neighborhood, and help reset and again get those good chemicals flowing. So that's kind of where I see the academic potential increasing. There's been so much research done about how being physically active doesn't just prolong your life, but helps in the classroom in so many ways, helps our focus in so many ways. So that's where I see my job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I recently read John Rady is a researcher out of Boston, and wrote a book called Spark. And anybody who wants to, better understand how exercise can actually prepare your brain for learning, right? Actual organic changes in your brain through aerobic exercise. That's why a lot of schools are moving to having a 0 period, getting those endorphins flowing, getting the exercise, the good chemicals flowing, as you said, before school starts, even before first period. A lot of schools are moving in that direction, getting kids moving earlier.
Yeah, at a school I was at, I did my student teaching at, before our state testing, we brought all the kids into the gym and we had a little dance party just, an hour, 30 minutes before they actually sat down for their tests, because it helps get all those like nervous jitters out. It helps them laugh a little bit. And
Yeah.
again, there's research in it. Moving helps.
And just the balance. I like the point you make about balance. You know, I know many adults, maybe myself included at certain points in my life, really didn't have that balance, right? Got to get to the office, got to get the work done, got to, you know, not being a great model for my own children and my students. But it's when I'm doing exercise and I'm feeling fit that I know, you know, it's that healthy mind, healthy body paradigm, which I think is so important. So
Yep. My mom used to say when she knew I was getting stressed, she said, "When was the last time you went and kicked a soccer ball?" And I was like, "Not in a while." So it helps to just
yeah, get into good life habits. Absolutely. Marcia, what vision do you have for how the history curriculum will evolve in the future? A lot of people think about history as, not me, and I know nobody at Ashbrook, but there are people who think of history as this dusty subject, right? That it's, you know, it's something that exists in a certain shape and form, and it will always exist in that shape and form. But I mean, I know that's not true, and I know you don't think that. When you think about history and history education, what do you think about for the future at Ashbrook?
I am really looking forward to a time at Ashbrook where we can follow a model similar to what we have in our excellent math and science program, where we offer different leveled offerings for each grade level. I would love for us to be able to group students a little bit more by ability and readiness and curiosity about the subject, so I can challenge them more appropriately, and I don't want to say aggressively challenge because that sort of takes away from the nurture side, but I'd love to be able to push some more students more appropriately to expand their horizons in the study of the humanities.
I mean, I think that's great. I think we talk about challenge and nurture, and people will often point to the science and math programs that we offer, but I love the fact that you're thinking about history. We are also, for folks on the call to know, currently developing an independent study on the English side. Aside from being head of school, I'm also an English teacher. It's a passion of mine. And so this sort of advanced literature and composition seminar will have you know, certain standards for kids to qualify for the course, one of which is interest and curiosity and willingness to study on a level that's closer to a high school level. And I think that that would be, you know, as you say, on par with what we do in mathematics and science. The text we'll study and the concepts we'll unpack are designed really to provoke analysis on a deeper interdisciplinary level, across not just staying in sort of the box of English, but across the humanities and across the other disciplines as well. It'll be taught very much in the vein of what people think about when they sign up for junior and senior sort of humanities course in a high school. So something to look forward to. Amanda, as a teacher leading a self-contained classroom, once again, you're called on to be a bit of a generalist, as you alluded to a little earlier. How's your role as a sort of, I'm going to call you a Renaissance person, Renaissance teacher? You have to know, it doesn't mean you don't have areas of specialty and passion. We know that's not true. We know you certainly do have those, but a self-contained teacher really does have to know a lot about a lot. How does it play out in terms of how students experience your classroom environment?
Yeah. So knowing a lot about a lot is a really good way to describe it. You know, having to be prepared for the math lesson in earth science and what are we learning in history today? And also, what do I want to do next in English? So for the kids, my goal every day is I want them to know that I love every subject. And even if I love other subjects a little bit more than the other, it's really important for me that they think I love all the subjects equally, and that this history project that we're doing today is just as cool as melting sugar that we did in science yesterday. And so I think that, you know, showing my passion really creates a positive environment where they're excited to try something new, where I'm like, hey, we're going to do this today. And they're like, okay, tell me a little bit more. You know, and just being able to go across curriculum where we're reading in history and then we turn around in English the next day and we can write about what we read in that unit, or we're learning a new skill in math, and then we get to turn around and use that new equation in science. And I like to throw a little bit of physical activity in there too. My kids always comment on, why do you make me do so many burpees and squats? And I said, because it's really good for your brain to take a break. And then I always tease them. I'm like, well, I had to do 25 air squats this morning, so I know that you can do 25 air squats. So we have a fun relationship where we can kind of, move around, get excited about something else, and then switch between the subjects pretty easily.
Such a sort of natural environment to integrate across the disciplines. I love it. I will say that I happen to know that English and writing are Amanda's favorite subjects. Don't tell anybody. Amanda was a great partner in writing workshop this summer with me. We will offer it again together this coming summer. And if you're on the call and you want to know more about that, there's a link on this slide, which you can get to when I send you this PowerPoint and the video. Claire, when you think about levels of study, can you talk about where students start and where they end up in high school with respect to language study at Ashbrook?
Just in high school. So if students take the language, because we follow all our students K through 4th, and they can choose to switch in 5th to a different language. But if they do take K through 8th, typically they will test into a level 3 in high school. If they decide to switch and take a language 5th through 8th, typically they test into level 2 in high school. So.
And can you talk a little bit about how we assign languages in the lower school? How does that happen? I know we have a chart there, but can you talk a little bit about the chart?
Yeah, so the languages are rotated in kindergarten. So next year it's Spanish, and this year it's French. So next year is Spanish, and then the following year will be Chinese, and then the following year French. So we just rotate through, and so that cohort next year will take Spanish all the way through 4th grade, and then they can choose in 5th grade to change or to stick with Spanish.
So it's at that point, if they've taken it since kindergarten, they're most likely tracking for a level 3 in high school.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I have a final question for each of you to answer. This is, again, another curiosity. If you weren't teaching what you are teaching, what would you be teaching?
I actually started college as an art major, but I decided that was entirely impractical, so I switched to English literature.
But you're also, I've seen some of your sort of graphic novel skills, which are pretty impressive as well. You have a lot of drawings on your bulletin boards in your room. So I think you could have gone either way. And I think, do you use, let me ask you this, in your own writing, do you illustrate your own stuff?
I did a collection of short stories, which were actually things that I had used for creative writing classes back in New England. I used to model for the students' story writing, and I just collected a bunch of them and self-published them on Kindle. And they did come with illustrations because we used to publish the stories in a little kind of pulp style magazine. So if you want to get the digital version on Kindle, 99 cents.
A little plug for Mr. Washburn. Great. Who else? What else would you teach if not teaching what you're currently teaching?
I will teach art too, because art is my major.
That's interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah, because I love any kind of art, even sewing. I love sewing too. That's why I create the students' dance outfit too.
Got it.
I probably would teach violin. I used to teach violin, but that was my major, music.
So that's amazing. We have 3 teachers who would choose art and the creative arts. It says a lot for, I know you better than other people who are on the call and may not have met you yet. And I can tell you that I see a lot of creativity in the way you teach. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
I'll go next. In my free time on the weekend, I also coach volleyball. So, you know, if I could do that full time, I would absolutely love that. But teaching in a school, if I was teaching anything else besides 5th grade, I would love to be like in a 3rd or 4th grade classroom. I really love the self-contained getting to teach everything. So that would be my only shift that I would ever make.
Knowing a lot about a lot. Yeah, there you go.
I'll go next. I think I would teach history. I always throw it in with my sports anyway, because I always find the background of it fascinating, where things started from and where they ended up now. But I would also want a boat building elective, because I have always wanted to be a part of that elective, but I have never gotten the chance, and it's so cool.
We're going to have to make sure that happens.
I think I'm kind of the odd duck here. I actually went off to college to become a math teacher and ended up in the humanities. So throw a wrench in that one. But if I weren't teaching history, I think with the pursuits that I have right now, I would want to teach calligraphy or hand lettering. I really enjoy bullet journaling, so I think that would be in there. And I'm also a really passionate home cook. So I think that could possibly be on the menu. Ha! See what I did there?
I did. I saw that. Yes. Clever. Rachel, how about you? Rachel, I know that, you know, I didn't talk to you about this, but I'm just wondering, out of curiosity, what would you teach? I know you were a 2nd grade teacher here at Ashbrook for a long time.
Yeah, my heart's always in lower school. I would go back to 1st, 2nd grade. I just love that age. It's so much wonder and joy. But I just love hearing all of these examples of what everybody would do, because that takes me back to all the electives that we offer. Like Marcia has actually offered a calligraphy elective that she has taught. So it's really neat that they can bring those passions in and actually teach them in different ways.
Yeah, I should talk a little bit about the electives. Another reason I fell in love with the school, when I saw this elective list, I thought, really? Are you guys making time in the day to do these? You know, I myself spent some time the first term teaching a Shakespeare elective. I'm currently teaching a poetry elective. It's an amazing opportunity for kids to see teachers. You know, I don't know if students look at me in my office and think that I always wanted to be a head of school. You know, I did always want to be a teacher, and literature and writing really appealed to me. And it's a way for me to stay in touch with it, right? And it's good for kids to see that passion, that I don't just sit at my desk and I don't know what they think I do, to be honest. But I think, you know, when they see me teaching a class, it's a little odd to them at first. Like, how are you? Like, it's like when they see me in the supermarket outside of school hours, it's a little weird, like that. They don't think wow, you don't live in school. You actually walk, you have legs, and you eat like normal people. But it's good for them to see to see teachers having these passions. Did I get everybody on that question? I think so. How about some questions and answers? Rachel, was there anything in the chat? Did we see anything in the chat come up, or?
I don't have anything in the chat that I can see right now.
Okay. You know, as a reminder, you know, we will make this video available to anyone who wants it. Either people are on the call, or if you can think of people who you might want to send it to, please ask for it and we can forward it. We can give it to you, and you can forward it to somebody who you think might have school-age children who would really enjoy taking a look at Ashbrook. Maybe we're the place that can meet their family's needs. Do we have any live questions?
Yeah, hi. It's Jen and Bill. We're back.
Hi, Jen and Bill. How are you? You're back. Good to see you.
We were at your math video too. We have
Right.
2 daughters, 1st and 3rd grade. They've actually been to your school for a tour a couple years ago before COVID. And then COVID hit and we homeschool now. I was kind of hoping to get a sense of like the curriculum throughout the years in the humanities, you know, in history in particular, And I was hoping to hear about the approach to teaching writing. I follow the Writing Revolution. It's more explicit approach. So I don't know, maybe Mrs. Washburn wants to talk about how history is built through the primary years and goes into middle school.
Rachel, if you could jump in there also, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. Quite frankly, I've seen the curriculum maps for the lower school levels, but I don't really have as much of a connection to, say, the 2nd or 3rd grade. I connect with Amanda, the 5th and 6th grade year. It's an expanded study of ancient civilizations up through the scientific revolution in Europe. So that's a 2-year course. In 7th grade, students study Western world geography. So we do a bunch of area studies in North and South America. And then 8th grade, we've been operating with a thematic approach in US history. So our first term dealt with diversity and identity, who we are as Americans and how we got there, sort of some of our high and low points. And in this term, we've been looking at Western expansion and US imperialism, and how all of those things shape our culture today, including some of the struggles that started in the progressive era that we still haven't quite overcome. So maybe Rachel could tell you a little bit more about the lower school level, and maybe Amanda could fill in too as well on that one.
Yeah, in the lower school, all of the teachers have about 4 different, and we call it social studies in the lower school units that they cover throughout the school year. They kind of flip back and forth between a science unit and a social studies unit. And they're really more geography based in the lower school. I mean, once they get to 3rd grade, they do cover a little bit more around the Oregon Trail and Lewis and Clark, but especially in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, most of the units are more geography based units. So they're learning a lot about just the world and mapping skills and naming the continents and oceans and countries. And then they go in and memorize all the 50 states. And so that kind of builds on itself from year to year throughout the lower school until they get to 5th grade. And then that kind of jumps right into what Marcia was talking about. I don't know. Do you want to add to that for 5th grade, Amanda?
I'm trying to I don't know, not necessarily. I think for 5th grade, it's the first time they have history every single day. And so that's different for a lot of them. And just like Marcia mentioned, starting that ancient civilizations. Right now we're learning about Judaism and the history of all of that. So, and then leading them up to be successful in 6th grade with Marcia. So.
And then to answer your question about writing, in the lower school, the writing approach follows more of a, I don't know if you've ever heard of Lucy Calkins, but it follows a Lucy Calkins, which is a writing workshop model. And that basically starts with a lot of just mini lessons is what we focus on in lower school. That's where their attention span is. So it's 10, maximum 15-minute little mini lessons focusing on a new writing trait. And so we also use the 6 traits, writing traits that we follow. So they focus on a new trait. They also focus on different writing skills like developing their ideas and organization and voice and all of that throughout the lower school. And then they break out into independent writing time, and teachers have opportunities to work with kids individually, small groups. And so they follow that model pretty closely all the way through 5th grade.
Thank you. Edgar, anything to add to that regarding 6 through 8?
Well, this year I've been focusing, I think, mostly on responding to literature. And a lot of it is pretty nuts and bolts about, topic sentence and giving support from the text and growing that out to the 5-paragraph essays in which they have a thesis, and then the topic sentences in the body paragraph. So we're really structuring it around academic writing. But another way that the students respond to the literature is creatively. So we have speculation about characters or alternate endings or telling stories from other characters' perspectives. But I think the writing that I've been doing with the students ties back to the literature almost always.
I love it. I love those alternate endings, looking at literature from another's, or a plot from another's perspective. I think kids really love that. Also, it's worth mentioning, I think, that Amanda and I in summer writing workshop we are disciples of Lucy Calkins as well, and spend a lot of time in writing process with our students.
I wanted to mention that I follow that with foreign language as well. There's a methodology that I use to follow that model.
Well, that's great. Once again, writing happens everywhere, right? I mean, stop the clock at any moment in school and ask kids what they're doing. Chances are they're going to be writing, unless they're doing burpees in Amanda's classroom. Or I don't know, maybe they do burpees and write at the same time, Amanda. It's I wouldn't put it past you. Okay, moving on. If there are no other questions, I'm sorry. Jen, anything else, or are you good? Good? Okay. I want to thank our panelists and our audience for taking the time out of your day to be here. To our panelists, I would say have a safe trip home, but you're already there. To our audience members, we hope to meet you in person soon. Please do contact us to schedule a tour or for a conversation about how Ashbrook could meet your family's needs. We'd love to have that conversation with you face to face. That would be terrific. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. And to my colleagues, I will see you tomorrow.
Good
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good
you
night.
and good night.
Night.